This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
Those guys came to the school, the Atari marketing people, and said, we'd like to give you a couple of computers to, let your students play with them and so forth. And in exchange, we'll come and take some pictures and maybe use you for marketing.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Tay Vaughan used Atari computers in his school for maritime skills and as a maritime surveyor. He was featured in that capacity in a 1983 Atari catalog, Atari Home Computers, The Next Generation. Next, he was hired by Atari and was an editor of the Atari Connection magazine, where he wrote the Bits and Pieces column. Later, Tay was senior editor of Antic magazine, and he edited the book The Best of Atari Software, which was published by Consumer's Guide. In this interview, we discuss Ted Richards and Jim Capparell, both of whom I have previously interviewed. This interview took place on December 4th, 2017.
I went to Oberlin College, and I took 2 different years off. The first, after freshman year, I took a year off and got a job on a Norwegian freighter and sailed around, not quite the Horn. We sailed down to the Straits of Magellan and circumnavigated South America.
Wow.
Yep. Went back to
This is
Oberlin.
like a shipping freighter? Or?
Yeah, it was a old-style freighter with a break bulk cargo ship. And then I went back to Oberlin and had a second sort of lackluster year and said, I better take another year out so I can get my act together. And then I went to Europe the second year and met a terrific girl over there and actually got married and came back to Oberlin for junior, senior years as a married student. This story leads up to spring break. Everybody takes off except I'm married and living essentially in campus housing with my wife. And I said, the computer center's open. I'm curious how all that stuff works. And I went over there, and we had at the college had a 360-44, real old IBM, and you had to do punch cards. And so I learned how to do all that stuff in the space of a week or two during spring break, and then got really interested in how to apply that with statistics and so forth. I was majoring in anthropology and sociology and did a survey, and I actually used the college computer to do statistical analysis. So I went off to grad school. I went to the University of California at San Francisco. I went to the medical school. And my first couple of years there, it turned out there were a lot of scientists that didn't know how to really look at their data. So I made some extra money on the side to supplement my fellowship with programming scientific subroutines in Fortran. Again, back in the old days with punch cards. Mm-hmm. And then I went through sort of an existential crisis close to my PhD, chucked the whole thing, and joined the Carpenters Union and spent a couple of years building highway bridges and custom homes as a union carpenter, a journeyman carpenter. And then I built an ocean-going sailboat in my front yard.
Wow.
and took about 3 years just north of San Francisco while I was living in a small town called Bolinas. Built a boat there, and I built custom homes for an outfit in Mill Valley and Tiburon and so forth. I ended up rebuilding a house of my own in Mill Valley eventually, but launched the boat and sailed out the Golden Gate, went down to Panama and eventually up to New England, and then back all the way to Florida, and eventually sold the boat a couple of years later in New Orleans on Lake Pontchartrain. So the boat's alive and well in Naples, Florida, as we speak.
Nice.
Anyway, when I got back to San Francisco, I was involved with a nonprofit, the Oceanic Society, and ran a marine surveying business out of my apartment on Telegraph Hill. And then I started a school. I looked around and said, geez, people need to learn how to do this stuff, fix up boats and do fiberglass work, engine mechanics, that kind of thing. So I went to the Department of Labor and defined an occupation called Marine Services Technician, and then ran several, and then I got a whole Pier 66 from the port of San Francisco. It had some classrooms and a couple of shops, and we started a school for teaching maritime skills. And this is a long way around to how I met Atari. Those guys came to the school, the Atari marketing people, and said, we'd like to give you a couple of computers to, let your students play with them and so forth. And in exchange, we'll come and take some pictures and maybe use you for marketing. I thought that was okay. Mm-hmm. And the computer itself ran BASIC, which was reasonably similar to Fortran, which I already knew. So I started playing with the computers myself and wrote a boatyard maintenance program and some other stuff, and tried to sell them unsuccessfully. Atari programs in BASIC had terrific visual graphics, but anyway, so when we shut the school down, mm-hmm. My friends at Atari said, hey, come to work for us, BASIC,
Sure.
Hey, you know about computers now. And
I'd like to stop you just for a second before we get to that next part. So you made some software for your Atari, and I guess the marketing thing happened because the reason I thought to look you up was there's a 1983 catalog, Atari Home Computers, the Next Generation, and in it there's a picture of you and a little 2-paragraph bio. I'm guessing. That's right. I'm guessing this is the marketing that happened after.
It's all part. Yeah, exactly. Okay. In fact, I still have that sweater that I'm showing wearing.
It's a nice one.
It's one of my favorites.
Nice. I would like to read this 2 paragraphs, and then if you have anything to say about it, you can tell me. Okay.
Sure.
It starts with a quote from you. What used to take 4 hours now takes 30 minutes. Tay Vaughan, Marine Surveyor. Tay Vaughan is often found aboard leaky boats. As an independent marine surveyor, he evaluates construction methods, seaworthiness, and operating safety for various clients. At college, Tay realized computer literacy was necessary, so he taught himself programming. Today, his Atari home computer saves time and provides greater accuracy. I use my computer to analyze shipwrecks, collisions, and repair costs, he remarks. Being able to generate thorough and consistently reliable reports makes a tremendous difference, particularly in legal cases where I am called as an expert witness. It's become a vital tool. and there's more time to devote to really important things like sailing.
Well, I said all those things, and I meant them. While I was a marine surveyor, I developed a report system so that when I went out on board a ship or a boat, mainly I specialized in yachts. I could. It was like essentially a checklist, and had several different layers of if then that, and then it would generate. It would actually, in the end, the Atari would print out a final report and a cover letter and so forth. So that was really useful to my work. And again, I never sort of monetized that one. I simply used it myself.
It said Ataris were looking. You had Ataris looking for shipwrecks.
No, I used the Atari to organize my report about the shipwreck.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
Is there any chance you still have any of the software on floppy disk somewhere?
No, and I'm very sorry about that. I lived in Oakland for about 17 years, and eventually I ran out of room for all the Atari stuff, and I sure do regret going to the dump one day with a truckload of software and a couple of Atari 800s.
That's too bad.
I know it is, but that'll rankle me for quite a while.
Okay, so they gave you the computers, you did the marketing thing, and then you shut down the business, and Atari came to you and offered you a job? Tell me about that.
Yes. Yeah. And that was, let's see, that was Ted Richards running the Atari Connection, which was the magazine that Atari sent to all the owners who sent in registrations. Ted said, "Come on board. I need somebody who can look at the technical side of things in the magazine." And that's what I did. And I also wrote a column about basic programming with the Atari.
Nice. So about what year did you start there?
Oh, in 1986, maybe, something like that.
Okay. So you tell me about that job. What was involved? Was it more of a marketing thing or more?
No, not really. The magazine was a marketing magazine.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an add-on to ownership of an Atari computer. But the job that I did was actually more like, here's what you can do in BASIC, and I ran a column, essentially, every month, or every time the magazine came out. I think it was more like quarterly.
Yeah, I think so.
We, we had a section on BASIC, and we also, I'm trying to remember what else I did. I wrote some articles, that sort of thing. So, Jesus, it's been a long time,
Yes.
Yeah. So, stayed busy. The Atari was down, I think, in Mountain View or somewhere down there, because I had to commute. I was living, at that time, I was engaged to my second wife and living in the hills behind Oakland and Berkeley. And it was a reasonably long commute, an hour and 10 minutes just to get down to work in the mornings. But the team down there was a lot of fun, and we were pretty excited about computers.
Nice. What was exciting? What did you do with it outside of work after you were done with the ship business? I mean, were you playing games, or did you keep programming? How were you using it?
Yeah, well, by that time, I was using it at work, right?
Sure.
And I don't think I was writing any software. Once I did write a set of stability calculations for oil tankers, and I remember it quite well. The Atari had a whole set of graphic routines built into the hardware, which made it really terrific for color computing back when resolutions were rotten, and and you plugged it into a TV through RF cables. I mean, it was primitive compared to what we have today. But I did write a serious set of programs to display the loading of and sequence of tankage in on a super tanker, where loading is critical to the ship's health, the way it's done. And briefly, you can imagine if you filled up the tank that's in the bow of the ship full up, and then you filled up the tank that's in the stern of the ship full up, and the other tanks were empty, the ship would have huge stresses on it. And it would want to break its back. It would want to hog up and break. So stability calculations are critical in tanker management. And so I had an automated or a program that would display the tankage and so forth. And I never took it to the second step, but I did do a presentation for Chevron shipping, and I do remember the comment. It was just after the IBM little chiclet laptop had been out for a while. And
the PC Junior?
Guys,
yeah.
Huh?
The PC Junior?
Well, no, the guy, one of the captains there, the shipping guy said, wanted to know why it wasn't working on the IBM, and I had a sense that they didn't want to mess with me because it was an Atari, and those are the game people. If I'd done it on an IBM, which would have been impossible because it didn't have the graphics at the time. Mm-hmm. So that project never went anywhere. I had some really lovely software, and of course it's all dead and gone now. I don't have a machine, and I wouldn't be able to recover it. But it showed a ship with various tanks and levels of fuel and stuff like that, and levels of cargo. So, yeah, no, I did use a computer. Now that you remind me, on the side, but I didn't really go back to the maritime world once I went to work at Atari. Mm-hmm. I ended up as a sort of full-time contractor there, and then later I went over to Apple and was a contractor there for a year or two, and then started my own company. So I gravitated deeper into computers. Mm-hmm.
Nice. What made you leave Atari? Was it the big shakeup in '84?
Yeah, I don't really remember what that was, but the magazine may have stopped publishing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I may have been made redundant without choice. I just don't really recall what the issues were. It was about 1986. I think it was after. How's that?
No, okay, it was after the treadmills took over. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You said in your bio that you did editing and pre-publication review of the Microsoft Basic 2 manual for the Atari.
Yes.
Yes. Any
I did.
stories there?
Well, yeah, there was. It was like technical editing, and there were. I mean, I did a fair amount of editing. I went to work for several magazines also after the Atari Connection. So I can remember Antic magazine was one of them.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that.
Which was way cool. And then there was Morph's Outpost on the digital frontier. And then there was Bonnell's, I was a senior editor at New Media magazine. So I ended up writing and editing a fair amount over the next couple of years until I started the Hypermedia Group. Started that in my basement with two partners. And that actually grew into a successful company.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so Antic Magazine, how did you end up there?
Who was that? Jim Capparell?
Yes.
I can't remember all the names.
Yeah, it was Jim.
Way back. Yeah, I think he ran into me at Comdex or at some place and said, "Come to work for us." So I did. Times have changed. It used to be with a press badge. You walk into a Comdex or a CES and you walk out with not just a bag full of literature, but you got product. They couldn't wait to give it away and get you to test it and so forth. And all that's changed quite a bit. Companies are not as gifting as they once were, and it's different now. I don't know, more conservative, but geez, there was a lot of energy and a lot of excitement around every new invention. It was like stepwise, starting with the Atari. We had pretty good graphics. The hardware kept getting better, and by the time I went to Apple, there were video boards. There were audio solutions, and multimedia started coming together as in a computer that eventually could do everything. Back in the old days, it was really hard to do motion animation or video, and now it's just part of what the computer does, and everyone expects it to perform.
Sure.
But those old days were something else, and it's been incremental over the last 30 years.
You also worked on a book. The Consumer Guide put out a book in 1983 called "The Best of Atari Software." And
yeah,
tell me about that.
In fact, I have a copy around here somewhere.
So do I.
Yeah. So again, I don't believe I really authored that. I was the technical editor on the thing, and I reviewed the performance of stuff and looked at the games that had been reviewed actually by, and I forget who it was that wrote the book. But my role was as a tech editor, I think, not as the author. But I do remember the outfit was in Skokie, Illinois, and I got a phone call and said, "Hey, would you go to work for us just to be the tech editor on this software magazine?" I said, "Well, sure. We'll send you an airplane ticket." That was in the days when there were real tickets in hand, and and come to Chicago area and meet us. And I was living out at Bethel Island, way out in the Sacramento Delta, and I missed my damned airplane by 20 minutes. I still remember that, having to phone in and apologize to I was going to miss the afternoon meeting. But anyway, yeah, no, I did that. And what other? I mean, I've reviewed books all through my career, and added value at where I could.
Sure.
To magazines mostly. Yeah. I did write a successful textbook for McGraw-Hill, which is still selling very well.
What was it about?
Multimedia. It's called Multimedia Making It Work, and I wrote that in 1992. And we finished the 9th edition 2 years ago, and we're already talking about a new. I mean, listen, every time a new invention happens, I've got to update this book, and it's a bit of a task. I mean, last edition I did a whole chapter on smartphones. So, because the edition before they were nobody had them.
Right. Yeah, I hear that's a thing. It's up and coming.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been an interesting ride.
Sounds like it. So tell me about what you do today.
Well, I'm retired. I hit 73 actually in August.
Okay.
Yeah, this year, 2017, and I don't know. I'm working in my woodworking shop, making interesting things from local trees, from oak and walnut and things that we've got here in the Chesapeake Bay area. And let's see, I'm revising my book, which has really been successful. I mean, it's one of the longest running McGraw-Hill textbooks. As I say, it's in the 9th edition, and it's sold more than 300,000 copies.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and it's in like 13 languages, and a lot of people around the world have learned computing, or at least multimedia, from my books. So in that way, it's I'm sort of proud of that contribution. So, but Atari was way back in the beginning, back with Pac-Man and all that, and back when they had televisions mounted underneath glass tables, and you could put a quarter in a slot and play, Star Wars. I mean, it was pretty, yeah. I mean, the way we live is really changing very fast now.
Absolutely. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is my last question, Tay. If you could send a message to the Atari computer users that still exist, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
Yeah, well, stay with it, but don't lose touch of the leading edge either. And the excitement is in the new stuff.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are two ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.